Apartheid. It was received today by Nelson Mandela, and it is not comfortable reading, describing apartheid as a crime against humanity, but also accusing Mandela's African National Congress of its own human rights abuses.
If the pain has often been unbearable and the revelations shocking to all of us, it is because they indeed bring us the beginnings of a common understanding of what happened and a steady restoration of the nation's humanity.
The report finds former apartheid president P.W. Botha accountable for killings and state-sponsored human rights abuses. He had refused to testify to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, calling it a farce. And Nelson Mandela's former wife, Winnie, is also held responsible for human rights violations. Her bodyguards are blamed for the murder and torture of suspected opponents. And another leading figure in South Africa, Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, is also condemned for his role in human rights abuses. A choir celebrated publication of the report, but it seems the search for truth has pleased no one. Apartheid leaders say it's a witch hunt, and the ANC say the Commission has criminalised its liberation struggle. Mark Austin, ITN.
We're going to take a short break now.
Still to come on the Lunchtime News, a space-age 77-year-old. As John Glenn prepares for blast-off today, we'll be hearing how he'll cope second time around.
And Jerry does a Marilyn at the Prince's birthday concert. Happy birthday to you.
That's in a couple of minutes. Join us then.
First American to orbit the Earth. Now, at the age of 77, he's about to return to space. Thousands of people have flocked to Cape Canaveral to see the liftoff of his spacecraft Discovery. Tim Wilcox reports.
The countdown clocks have been ticking since Monday. Discovery's engineers putting the $2 billion craft through her final checks ahead of today's launch. The crew is prepared for what is, thanks to one man, arguably NASA's most high-profile launch since Apollo touched down on the moon.
A little different trip this time. Yeah.
More than 300,000 people are expected to join the president, assorted film stars and the world's media to watch John Glenn's second ascent into the heavens today. At 77, the oldest astronaut to fly a mission.
Godspeed, John Glenn.
36 years ago, at the height of the space race with Russia, Glenn made history as the first American to orbit the Earth. A career as a senator followed. He's fought hard to win a return trip, but his family are less enthusiastic.
He was named to go back up again, and I wasn't 100% behind it at all.
If he would decide today that he had changed his mind, I would be very happy about that.
But there's unlikely to be a change of heart for this all-American hero, nor on NASA's part, who've been criticised for sending Glenn into space again for reasons of good PR rather than genuine scientific research. Tim Wilcox, ITN.
Well, joining me now is the space expert Heather Cooper, being blown around on a rooftop, I have to tell you. Now, Heather, do you think this is a daft stunt?
I don't think it's daft at all, Nick. I mean, when you think about it, aging actually involves some of the processes that happen to you when you go into space, like your bones lose calcium, your muscles go floppy, you get wobbly, and also you have sleep deprivation patterns. All that happens when you get older and when you go into space. So why not see how space affects an elderly person? It sort of hurries the whole thing up.
Now, is there a question of safety because of John Glenn's age?
No, I don't think there is. I mean, don't forget that he actually went through the same medical tests as all the other astronauts. So he's been through the same hoops as them. They've been through rehearsal after rehearsal. It's been like the real thing. And I don't think there's going to be any problem at all. I think he'll probably do better than the other astronauts because he'll be more motivated.
But there is a kind of feeling about that sort of exploit that it has to be done by very young, very fit people. Are we saying almost anybody could go into space?
We're not saying anybody could go into space, and I doubt the likes of you and me can go into space because we're probably pretty unfit. But if you're fit, you can do anything. And I think this is giving out all the right messages to people who are over the age of 70, that if you keep yourself in trim, you can do anything. And I know that some of the aging groups in the States are absolutely delighted that John Glenn is going into space. And it's also inspiring a lot of young people who are regarding John Glenn as their grandfather and really sort of, saying to them, you can do it too if you really keep fit.
What about yourself? Do you envy John Glenn?
Oh, of course I envy John Glenn. I applied to be Britain's first cosmonaut, but Helen Sharman got it, and I know why she got it and I didn't. She said her hobby was playing squash. I said my hobby was gentle ambling through the English countryside, and they took one look at that and thought, Cooper's not the right stuff, she ain't going into space.
Well, perhaps you're just a bit young for it, Heather. That's probably the real problem.
Maybe, but that's what, well, John Glenn actually said he thought his age might count in his favour when he realised that there was a big spotlight on the American ageing population. He lobbied hard to go into space again, but NASA and indeed the presidency wanted to keep him grounded as a good example of PR. And remember, when John goes into space later on today, fingers crossed, it's going to be a far less dangerous experience than it was when he went up on Friendship 7 all those years ago, when we didn't actually know how the human body would respond in space, and he was actually submitted to 8 Gs, 8 gravitational forces then. It's only 3 this time. It'll be much better.
Heather Cooper, nearly taking off yourself. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Nick.
Bye.
Well, floodwaters are continuing to rise in parts of Britain, with many areas experiencing what's thought to be their wettest October on record. The Midlands and South Wales are worst affected. The River Wye at Hereford is 19 feet higher than normal, and the River Severn has red warnings covering a 100-mile stretch. Well, our reporter Ben McCarthy is in the centre of Shrewsbury, where the Severn has burst its banks, flooding homes and businesses. Ben, tell us what it's like there.
Well, Julia, amazingly, this is the centre of Shrewsbury. I'm standing on one of the main roads which runs up through the town. Normally there are 3 lanes of traffic rushing up here, but today it's turned into simply an extension of the River Severn. And a lot of the properties down here, the businesses and offices, are all flooded. You can see a pub there, there's a garage, there's a chemist further down. They're doing absolutely no business today at all, and they won't be for some time. As you can imagine, the whole scene in this town is fairly chaotic with this amount of flooding. So they have organised a state of emergency effectively, and if I can just wander over here, the man who's been organising that, Ian Sawyers, who's the Chief Emergency Planning Officer for the county. Ian, how bad has it been?
Well, it's been quite serious. I mean, there has been a lot of rain, as you can see, and a lot of flooding, more than we've probably had for 40 or 50 years, and we won't know the exact details until the water really starts to subside and we get the figures from the Environment Agency. But suffice to say, there have been an awful lot of properties, residential and commercial, that have been flooded and damage caused.
I know you've been up most of the night. What have you been having to do? What does this state of emergency mean?
Well, what it means is we're really responding to help, or requests for help from other authorities, the district councils, the police, the fire, the ambulance, and more importantly, the general public. It is a very, very frightening business, watching your home being flooded, particularly in the middle of the night. And we opened a helpline yesterday at about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And we have, I hope, been able to answer the questions of people and reassure them.
And rescue some people in cases?
Well, the fire service have done 1 or 2 rescues, but fortunately the plan was that we would invite people to stay put. And they have done, and that has been absolutely fantastic, because that has reduced the call on the emergency services. People did stay in their homes. We were able to talk to them and reassure them, both on the radio and by telephone. And that has paid off. So rescues have not been a major feature of the exercise.
Presumably, when you look at the extent of it, the cost is going to be phenomenal. I mean, no idea now.
I wouldn't either. I mean, yes, it's hard to say. The cost to the authorities, a certain amount. I think also, I feel very sorry for the people whose homes have been flooded, particularly those who are not normally flooded. They're the ones who've been caught, well, not caught out, but experiencing it for the first time. And we will do, the councils will do all they can to ensure that they are helped where possible.
And presumably the worst thing for you guys is that it's only the beginning of winter and you've already had this, so are you preparing for more?
Well, this is the first flood in October for 330 years, I'm told. And not only are we preparing for more, but there is a possibility of heavy rain over the weekend, which means we can go through the whole thing again at the weekend.
And I can tell you that the reason for all this flooding is that up in the Welsh mountains, several miles in that direction, they've had 1.5 times the normal amount of rain for October in just 4 days. So that's why all the rivers are so swollen, and that's the problem that we've got. So, and we're expecting, as Ian said, more over the weekend. Now back to the studio.
The main headlines again. Plans were unveiled today for a massive change in the way we vote at elections. The proposals, published by a commission headed by Lord Jenkins, would herald a form of proportional representation. The Prime Minister welcomed the report. He said it made a powerful case, in his words, for the new system.
Before we go, news of how Geri Halliwell spiced up her wardrobe and serenaded a prince. Last night she stole the show at a 50th birthday gala for Prince Charles. Out went the trademark short dress, and in came a glamorous new look that owed more to Marilyn Monroe. Philippa Young reports.
It was her first public singing performance since leaving the Spice Girls. Geri Halliwell emerged in a £10,000 designer dress, leaving the audience in no doubt about whether she could really sing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Your Royal Highness. Happy birthday to you.
The former Spice Girl used Marilyn Monroe as the inspiration for the launch of her solo career, and she's been an admirer of the Prince for some time. Dozens of Prince Charles's favourite stars helped raise nearly £250,000 for charity last night. Last night's show was the first of 3 celebrations marking the Prince's birthday. He'll be 50 next month. Philippa Young, ITV.
And that's all from us. The early evening news with John Suchet is at 5:40.
Julia will be here with news.